Welcome to the People You Should Know podcast, telling the stories of people you should know and allowing their greatness to inspire everyday people. And now, here are your weekly hosts, Danny Ferry and David Farwell.
Hello and welcome to the People You Should Know podcast. I'm your host, Danny Ferry. Alongside me today is my co-host, Dave Farwell. For our first-time listeners, we want to invite you to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, or whatever platform you are using to listen to us right now. Also, be sure to sign up for episode alerts by joining our mailing list. That way you know when new episodes drop. Don't worry, we're not going to send you junk. We are only looking to add value to your life. So head on over to heydouyouknow.com and sign up for those episode alerts. That's heydouyouknow.com. Dave, how are you doing today, man?
Man, I'm doing so good, and I'll tell you the number one reason I'm doing good is that I finally have a refrigerator again.
No way! The refrigerator came!
Yes! Oh, man. So I'll tell you what a first world problem, but when you don't have a refrigerator, you start to realize how much you depend on an appliance like that. So when they showed up an hour early for our delivery, I was super happy, and we're back in business, so it's a good day.
Man, that is awesome to hear. Today we actually went into a car dealership here in the area because we have a crack in our windshield, but it's not from a rock, it's not from an accident, it's literally like a stress fracture. Like Whoa. from and the car's about 5 years old, and thankfully we have a 6-year 120,000 mile warranty on it that we bought. Like, we bought the extra. But man, you would just like trying to go in and have a conversation with the car dealership about how the warranty works and how we can all work together to get the windshield replaced. You would think that we were asking somebody like how to cure cancer or something. It was absolutely ridiculous. So, dude, I understand it's a first world problem, and what I'm happy because sometimes when they say they're going to deliver, did they give you like a delivery time between this time and this time?
They sure did.
Yeah. And How many times have you gone through it where it's like, we're going to be here between these hours, and all of a sudden you get the dreaded phone call like, oh, it's not going to happen today?
Absolutely, man. That's happened almost every other time. So I feel very, very fortunate that this time around, not only were they within the time window, but they were even early. So
that's awesome, man. I'm glad that. Well, listen, last night I was actually, sitting thinking about today's guests, which are the owners of a local coffee shop in York County called the Belmont Bean. And I was trying to remember the first time that I visited the coffee shop. And so I ended up having to talk with my wife a little bit because I was trying to remember if I had found the coffee shop, if she had found the coffee shop, and like when the first time was that we visited. And she reminded me that the first time that we came to the coffee shop was actually to celebrate a week when I had signed like 2 really significant clients in my digital marketing agency.
Nice.
So it was like, this celebratory thing. So the first thing I just kind of wanted to ask you, Dave, is it kind of got me curious, got me thinking. And I wanted to ask you, when you are really excited or something really excited happens in life, like a big moment, or something that you deem as like, hey, this is a major success, what is your preferred way to celebrate?
It's a great question. I love it. I think there's really 2 primary things that I enjoy personally that are very much wrapped up in my family, and I'm sure it's the same for you. Both of us being very devoted family guys. But man, I love to gather my family up and to go out and to go to a favorite place of ours, whether it's a restaurant, coffee shop, a place at the beach down here in San Diego, or wherever it may be. Just a place that we all enjoy together, and just to spend some time just enjoying one another, letting the freedom that comes with the celebrations in life. Let all just like laugh and let loose a little bit. It's absolutely my favorite.
Well, it's funny that you said that, like the freedoms that come with celebration, because as I'm like remembering my first visit to the Belmont Bean, the one thing I can remember and recall is like the emotion I was feeling. It was like this combination of like relief and excitement. And I know that might sound weird when you're celebrating, but for any of my fellow business owners out there, you probably can relate. Like when you're in the midst of the hustle and you finally have some serious success, it like feels really good to just take a breath and celebrate. So Yeah, we did that. It was actually my wife's idea to go to the coffee shop. She definitely reminded me about that last night because she was on Facebook, and some of her friends were mentioning about this coffee shop, and she searched it, and it was only a couple miles from our house. So naturally, we were like, let's go celebrate. So it's me and her and our 3 kids. So I have 2 daughters and a son, and we sat down at one of the tables, and my son, Bo, he's 3. And so we got him just like a hot chocolate, like he was super pumped to get like a hot chocolate. And just like 3-year-olds do, he dropped his cup and it spilled all over the floor. And I mean, it just went everywhere. And so the coffee shop, there's people in there. We're feeling a bit frazzled. We're trying to clean it up, like find as many napkins as we can, just like, and it's not working. It's not enough. And thankfully, there was a girl who came with a mop and a bucket. She cleaned it up. She was super nice. And then a few seconds later, and this was really just kind of a major moment for Laura and I as we were thinking back, we turned around and standing there was Jason, one of the owners. He had a fresh hot chocolate in his hand and just a smile on his face and said, like, here's a hot chocolate. He just replaced Bo's hot chocolate. And it was just a super nice gesture that 2 parents frazzled, trying to celebrate. And we were talking about it. And I think we both agreed it's probably why we started coming back to the Belmont Bean with like greater frequency. So after that visit, right, I began to frequent the Belmont Bean like more often. So I started my digital marketing agency, and I primarily worked from my home office. But Dave, as I know you understand, after a while of being stuck in a home office, you just need to get out amongst the people, right?
So true.
Yeah. So like I needed a change of scenery. And so when that would happen, I would go to the coffee shop and I would work there for a few hours. And so after a few times of being there, like you're sitting there, you're doing a little people watching, but I just noticed something that was like really refreshing to me. And that was like the amount of diversity that was going on in the coffee shop in so many different ways, the conversations that people were having, the space to have those conversations without all the friction you hear in the world all the time. And, without all the polarization, just people having conversations. And to me, it was extremely refreshing. So I began to really love the atmosphere, what was really, and what is really cool, like not only then, but still today, is every time I walk into the coffee shop, I would begin to see somebody that I know. Like we would strike up a conversation, and it always just seemed like when I would run into somebody at the coffee shop, it would be like timely. Like I just needed to have that encouragement, that conversation. Maybe it was somebody in business, or just like a life conversation with somebody, but it was really important that I had it. So on this one particular occasion, I walked in to do some work, and a mutual friend of ours, Dave, Richard, was sitting there. And we just started talking about life. And like about an hour and a half later, I still hadn't broke open my laptop. Me and him had just had really great, amazing conversation. And he mentions to me that in the back of the coffee shop, there's this office space available. And so immediately, like, sirens are going off, right? Bells, sirens are going off. And I remember saying, like, where's this at? Like, can you show it to me? And like to myself, I thought, man, how amazing would it be to operate my business from this super cool location? And at the same time, what I had grown to learn is that the Belmont Bean is one of the like top networking hubs in all of York County. So needless to say, one thing led to another. And in February of this past year, I moved my office from my home office into an office space in the back of the coffee shop. And I can personally say, hands down, it's been one of the best business decisions I've ever made, because every day I get the opportunity to meet new people, or I can connect with people that I already know, or just be relational with like whoever's in there. Like just a couple minutes ago before our episode, I went over to get a coffee, and there was somebody sitting there who went to the same medical college that I went to, and was just able to strike up a conversation and say, hey, I went there. How are things going? So Dave, I wanted to ask you, because you were just recently in town, and probably about a month ago now, you kind of spent like the entire day working in the coffee shop. I just wanted to know kind of like what your impressions were and what you thought while you were in there working.
Well, yeah, man. I mean, first of all, it starts just with the fact that like I was coming to meet with you. We started our morning with just a great meeting, reconnecting there in the coffee shop. and let's just be honest. If you're in a place where like the environment or the vibe isn't good, you might stay for your meeting, but you're not staying any longer than you need to. And I think it speaks a lot to the credit of the overall environment and vibe that they've got going on there at the Belmont Bean, which has a ton to do with just the nature of how connection is happening in that place. And so the fact that like I spent the rest of my day there going in and out of meetings, and then I'd come back to that place and I'd continue to work, and I'm listening to conversations. I moved away from the area a couple of years ago. But all of a sudden I'm reconnecting with people that I hadn't seen in a couple of years who were coming in and out of the coffee shop. And a guy next to me needed to borrow my charging cable for his computer. And just the nature of what was happening in that space was so cool that, quite honestly, I stayed almost right up until it closed. And I was a little disappointed that it was closing, to be perfectly honest, because I was super productive that day. I enjoyed the space so much. The coffee is great. And just everything about that place made it such a wonderful environment, both for work, for collaboration, for connection, reconnecting. All of it was just an overall win-win. And it doesn't surprise me at all to hear about how successful this place has been since it started, because I was sucked into the same thing and the same enthusiasm for that place.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you a question, right? So you're out in Temecula, California, and obviously when you were living in the York area, you would frequent some of the different places, but since you've been out there, where are some of your favorite places to go? What are some of the networking hub type places that you kind of spend your time in when you're out there?
I'll tell you what, the networking connection type thing in this area is a tough nut to crack.
Really?
The culture of just how people are around here, it's very isolated. People just kind of stick to themselves. And so it's very rare. I'll tell you this will blow your mind. If you invite somebody, a native of California, to come over to your house for dinner, they don't know how to respond to that invitation, because people don't invite each other over. It literally doesn't happen. And so the first few times that we like invited our neighbors or people like, hey, come over for a meal, it was like mind blowing to them that somebody would open up their home for a neighbor to come over. And so it's been a little bit tough, but I will say that as far as enjoyable places to meet and connect with people, there's a couple of great coffee shops in the area that are pretty great. East Coffee and a place called Intaza, which is my favorite. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't hurt at all. Probably one of my favorite places to go to connect with people is In-N-Out. So if you've never been to In-N-Out, you deserve to have one of the best burgers you'll ever have.
Awesome, man. Well, let's talk a little bit about the business that resides in the back of the coffee shop, and just so happens to be one of our sponsors for the People You Should Know podcast, Empowered Creative. Empowered Creative is a digital marketing company that helps you build a positive online reputation and increase your online leads. Are you embarrassed by the way your website looks, or do you feel overwhelmed with trying to manage your online marketing strategy? Do you just want to feel confident that your online presence is having an impact? Visit empoweredcreative.co, click book a consultation, and you will be on your way to building a positive online reputation, increasing your leads, and feeling the confidence you deserve about your business's online presence. All right, Dave, so let's bring in our guest for today, Holly, Letaigne-Merrow, and Jason Wehrle. How's it going, guys?
It's going awesome.
Awesome
now.
Fantastic. Sweet, guys. Well, thanks for joining us today on the People You Should Know podcast. Have you guys ever been on a podcast before?
No. I've done like video instruction things that we post online, but never an interview.
Fantastic. Well, we just got done hyping up the Belmont Bean and the amazing place that we both believe that it is. So we wanted to talk to the two masterminds behind kind of creating the amazing atmosphere that the place has. And so you guys, obviously, we haven't released any episodes yet at the time of this recording. So, but really the premise of this podcast is to be able to tell some amazing stories and inspire other people to greatness. And so one of the things that we really wanted to start off with was just hearing about how Jason, you and Holly had met for the first time. And then I want to ask a question over to Holly, but Jason, do you remember the first time that you and Holly met?
I do, actually. I do. It was at the church where you had your temporary studio, or your real studio at that time. And we met as my wife and I met as dance parents. So our daughter does Irish dance, and Holly is the instructor. And I was just an angry parent at that point. As we do. When are things going to be scheduled, et cetera, and when are performances, and that was it. Literally, that was it.
Awesome.
She moved to another studio as temporary as she was diving into this space that she currently has.
Awesome. Holly, I wanted to ask you, anybody that knows Jason knows that he's just a really funny guy and brings a lot of energy wherever he's at. But what was your first impression when you met Jason?
I don't remember when I first met Jason. I'm sorry, Jason. Yeah.
It must have been unremarkable.
I didn't want to say it. But I do know that when I was feeling overwhelmed, when I was trying to run this business by myself, or all three businesses by myself, Jason very graciously offered his help with like the computer systems and things like that. And he spent a lot of time helping me and putting a lot of effort into it. And so that's, I think, really my first impression of him. I see a lot of dance parents. Okay.
Right.
So.
Right. So let's just, so how was Jason as a dance parent, right? Like if you're going to rank him from being like one of the screamers, or was he just more of a chill parent?
He kind of hung in the back. He hung in the background. Yeah. He wasn't a stage parent.
Gotcha. So Holly,
I'm actually more of a stage parent now.
Now he comes in and disrupts my classes by trying to do Irish dance.
That's awesome. So Holly, before you partnered with Jason, like what was your first experience in business? And I know that before you partnered with him, you were partnering with somebody else. So like, what was kind of your first experience in business, and what was it like, partnering with somebody else before Jason?
Yeah, so I started my dance studio in 2009 as a sole proprietorship. So I did that for a long time. And then I needed to expand my bit, the studios where I operated. So I was looking for different locations, and I came upon this location. It's 6,000 square feet. I certainly didn't need all of it for my dance studios. So another dance parent, she wanted to do like catering and stuff like this. This has an industrial sized kitchen and a cafe. So that's when I thought, okay, I could do the dance studio and the art center part of it. She could do that. So it kind of worked that way. But the partnership didn't work out. So then it was me doing all of it.
Right.
And I could do all of it, but I didn't want to do all of it, So I knew I wanted a partner. So I was looking for a partner anyway. And since Jason was so generous with his time and his help and stuff, I'm like, hey, you're already doing half of the partnership stuff now already. Why don't you make it legal and get some benefit from it? So I had to talk him into it, but he eventually agreed.
And Jason, is that kind of how you remember everything going on your side of things, just bringing this full circle?
It was actually, almost to the T. Originally we after the other partnership was dissolved, we actually, my wife has a graphic design background, so I took the opportunity to try to market the space right before we even partnership, and we had several people come in and out, in and out, in and out, and literally, it didn't go exactly like this, but we looked at each other and said, let's just do this ourselves. And she offered what she just mentioned, and we did, literally. $250, to start the drawer, and off we went. Like it was, yeah.
Well, I have to say that I did
Go ahead.
renovate the entire building before that.
Right. Yeah.
So it wasn't $250.
Well,
like
for the coffee shop.
$250,000 out of pocket. Yeah, the building was in disarray. It was not functioning. It had been closed off with a leaky roof for over a year. Everything had to be replaced. We stripped it down to the concrete floors and the cinder block walls and the metal roof. It was completely gutted and redone according to like the uniform construction codes
Right.
and township and occupancy and all that kind of stuff. Lots of fun.
Holly, I wanted to ask you, so a lot of times in business and in life in general, when something doesn't go well, right, a lot of times people will say, I'm not going to do that again, or will kind of be afraid to take a leap. So you obviously had, a partnership before you partnered with Jason. I just wanted to ask you, and I really feel like this would be encouraging for people that are listening who maybe have had a bad first experience in business, but why did you think partnering with Jason was going to be different than maybe your first go around?
I don't know. I hear a lot of people say, I'm not going to try that again because I already tried it and it didn't work. But I think it's the nature of life to keep pushing ahead until something works. It doesn't mean trying the same thing. You have to have an open mind and look for opportunities and look for the good in situations, and I always have hope that, I learned from my first experience.
Right.
So therefore, even if I do the same thing, it's not really the same thing because I have a higher level of awareness. And hopefully this time with those little tweaks, it's going to work.
Gotcha.
You have to keep trying. Yeah.
So, you bought the building here on Belmont Street before you partnered with Jason. And I wanted to ask you just kind of for the backstory is like, what was it that drew you to the location? And, what drew you to it? What was kind of the vision that you were like, this building is obviously abandoned. You said the roof was caving in. What did you see in it that maybe others didn't see in it?
Let me just say, first of all, I was drawn to it because it was zoned correctly.
Yeah.
It was close to major points of, travel roads. Also, a biggie was the parking. So based on the occupancy of the building and the use of the building, you have to have a certain amount of parking spaces, blah, blah, blah. That was the hardest thing, was to find a building that had adequate parking.
Gotcha.
So, yeah. I wasn't really thinking too much. Like, I actually live in the neighborhood. I live around the block,
Gotcha.
And stuff. So I can walk to work, which is really, really nice. But I had looked all over. I also liked the open space. I actually liked that it was so dilapidated. Okay. Because then I could just start from the beginning and plan how I wanted the building to be.
Right.
The type of floors, where the walls go, how the flow of people are, how they go through the building and what they see and as they go through the building and things like that. Like I could actually, I sat down and I had a piece of paper and I just started sketching out the existing structures that I couldn't change and then how I wanted to manipulate what was manipulatable.
So after having done all the renovations, I have to ask the question, if you knew what you knew now, then would you do it over again?
I wouldn't do it exactly the same way. Yeah.
What would you do differently?
I think I would be a little bit smarter when dealing with like the construction people and things like that. We were very trusting in the beginning, and we pretty much lost $28,000 right at the beginning.
Gotcha.
On the first contractor that we had. So, you know, we would have been a little bit more less naive, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense.
With the contractors and yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things where people don't really tell you when you start like into business about just how important it is to be savvy. And unfortunately, that nature of being savvy usually only comes through taking some hits and developing that within us. This is really a question for either of you, but I would just love to hear. Tell me about a time when along this process where you thought, maybe it would be better to just stop right now. Did you have a point anywhere along the path where you thought maybe we should go a different direction? Maybe a different or a better idea would be a better course of action?
I did. We were having a hard time with the sellers of the building. We had already put in lots and lots of money and time and renovations. And, we had to think about the end game. You know, the guy wasn't really on the up and up. He was a little bit, the deals weren't happening in honest ways, and that kind of thing. And it's like, how deep do we get into this? Because we don't know what the end result's going to be. So there was a point where we had to think about that. And so at that point we would have lost our $250,000 out of pocket. Okay. We would have just lost that.
Right. Yeah.
But we had to be okay with that because we didn't want to get deeper in. And so it helped us to accept that.
Yeah.
Up to the day after settlement.
Day after.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, what an amazing.
To the point where for both of us, I mean, Holly, there was a lot of, medical issues out of that too, right? To say stop, right? And just the stress and the anxiety of are we doing the right thing was upsetting to me, as like coming into it, right? Knowing what Holly went through when she was in the process of the lease to own and everything else, and talking about the contractors, and just anger set in for me, right? Because I wasn't there, I would have handled it differently, but I feel that she was taken advantage of for who she is, and that's not fair as well. I mean, being a good-hearted person doesn't mean you get taken advantage of, right?
It shouldn't. You're right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we met a lot of bad apples out there along the way, but there were there were so many good people too. And that's what coasted us through. We had to deal with the bad apples, but overall, the people who were good and meant well were the ones that we stuck with and pulled us through.
Well, I'll just say this, not really honestly knowing either of you, I often tell the people I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, their risk is always greater than regret. But that's a hard lesson when you're right in the middle of the regret to hold on to. And I just want to commend the both of you for right in the middle of all of that mess and just meeting all the bad apples, everything that you had to go through. Thank you for being an example to our listeners and to the entrepreneurs and people who are out there that are going after these risks. Thanks for being such a great example to them for the reward that comes if you're able to and willing to stick it out. So well done.
Well, the other part of it too is you have to be willing to be flexible with your end product. Okay, so when I went into this, I had a vision of what it was going to be. Okay, it ended up not being exactly that. I never, ever thought in my life that I wanted to run a coffee shop. Okay.
So what was the original thought that you had before it became a coffee shop?
We wanted to rent out the industrial sized kitchen and as part of that, the cafe, so that whoever was the caterer could also have an outlet. And that's what we tried over and over and over again. We had people come in for various reasons, all kinds of different reasons they weren't able to at that time. And Jason and I were so frustrated. And finally I looked at him and I'm like, we're already paying for the space. How hard can it be to open a coffee shop?
Jason,
wow.
Jason,
Yeah.
how was that? How hard was it to open up a coffee shop?
Well, let's just say, I want to say this though. I commend Holly for, allowing a type A guy come into her world, right, and change that end game a little bit, right, and being accepting to that, because I know that that's a struggle, and I know it was a struggle. I mean, she's the artist; she had this on canvas, and this was the vision, and was allowing that. I know, as you're talking about entrepreneurs, right? I've never been in a partnership either before. So being able to allow that and accept that on my end as well, right? To say that her ideas are good is part of the partnership and the growth. But we did this during COVID.
Oh, wow. So wow.
The coffee shop. This is our third year, December 27th, I think it is. 2019 is when we came in. But the building overall, that's been ongoing. But then COVID hit when the profit center came, right? I mean, she had her school, but the profit center that could support the rest of the building. That was a tough time, very challenging, very, very challenging time.
Yeah. And what pulled us through was the support of our local community. They supported us. Yeah.
You have to find other ways for revenue, right? If the foot traffic's not coming in, I mean, we were blessed to have a built-in market of her dance school, right? The dance parents had a place to sit and have coffee. So that really helped. And then that's word of mouth. And then, the drive for that, this person tells this person and so forth. And then maybe this person tells this person about Irish dance, so she gets another client there as well, right? But then, sitting there and talking about the community, and the other ways of revenue and revenue streams that we had to come up with. I mean, to the point where we had the community trusting in us, and we sold discounted gift cards to have that cash flow, right? Over time, that $100 would have been a loss, not a loss, but you know what I mean? Realized over time rather than the $100 right then and there. So it was a cash infusion that the community, and they trusted in us to buy those gift cards, right? Because they didn't know if we were going to be around or not. But here we are 3 years later. And again, it is community based.
So would you say that like the initial network of people that helped to really get the Belmont Bean going was like parents and people that were a part of the dance studio?
100% in the Elmwood community there. Yep, 100%.
I just think that's
during
go ahead.
During COVID, the dance school essentially was shut down. So prior to that was a big part of it. But during COVID, it was all the community. That
I feel like that's such an important point that we can just make right here in the midst of this, is that your network is whoever the people are that you are just doing life with every single day. So for the Belmont Bean and for Jason and Holly, it's the people that they were just doing life with. Holly with parents in the dance studio. Jason was one of the parents, and then obviously was connected in that way. But I just want to encourage anybody listening that, sometimes networking can be really scary. If you think about some of the examples we used from the last episode where, I walked into a big room full of people I didn't know, and it was a mixer, and, just trying to rub shoulders with people that I don't know. But there are many different methods of networking. One of them is just to meaningfully connect with the people that you're just doing life with right now. And I think piggybacking off of that, a question I would love to have you guys answer. Jason, I'll go to you first, is how were you able to cast vision to the parents to see what you guys were trying to do, where there was just buy-in there, and they were like, you know what, we want to get behind these two?
Wow, that's deep. Cast vision. It was trust, right? Holly built that trust from the get-go. You got to remember, it's a not childcare establishment, but she's trusted with people's children, right? So you bring in this public thing called a coffee shop, and building that trust. So Holly's trust was there. So I think that helped us drive the vision. The parents trusted her, knew where it was going. I'm, again, just a dance dad right at this time. Having that discussion, sitting there as the dance dad, and promoting it, right? This is a good thing for the community. This is what we're going to do. This is a place to sit and talk. The other siblings can do their homework. Just selling it that way as a product, right? Versus just a please buy our coffee because you're here already, right? I mean, but an experience, the whole package of the dance school and what we offer.
Holly, anything that you kind of observed during that time, as far as, was it because of COVID, because there was this coming together of people in the community during COVID that they were like, hey, we want to help support you, or was there something else you saw?
I think it could have been. I don't know how much that influenced people's support. I do think that there's a general movement right now towards more supporting local businesses. People are moving away from the cookie cutter businesses and the standard things. So I think that has been working to our benefit. For me, I have always been off the beaten path. I don't like doing status quo stuff. And I felt like there was no space where people could just hang out and be creative and, like the kind of meeting, gathering place that we have here. So I wanted to create that. I didn't know if people would respond to that or not, but they have. And I think that need has been filled for certain people in that regard.
Yeah, what a great point that you've made there, especially about the fact that people are moving away in terms of whether you're an entrepreneur, whatever it is that you're doing. People are moving away from the common things that have been done for a while. Quite honestly, in some ways, I think that COVID was a gift to us because it caused people to really start to think with different parts of their brain and to develop some ingenuity, some creativity when it comes to business. And so in that regard, not that I'm happy for every aspect of it, but I would say that I think there were some positives that came out of that for our different communities and stuff like that. You've kind of answered this question a little bit, but we're going to kind of transition to talking specifically about networking and connecting and the importance of that, no matter what business you're a part of. And so I want to just ask for maybe it's a little bit more of your thoughts when it comes to how did or how has, because it's certainly not something that you do once and then stop doing, but how did or how has networking helped you both as you worked to get the word out about the coffee shop?
I defer to Jason. I tend to be an introvert. Jason is definitely an extrovert, and he can work a room. I don't mind being in front. I don't mind being in front of people and that kind of thing, speaking and things like that. But as far as just like unscripted social stuff, he just is a fish in water, and so he's really complemented my skill set with that. So, Jason, I defer to you, the master.
So networking, how did networking help us? Well, I will give you a little history of me. I'm not a Yorker, right? And that's hard enough if you know York, PA. So I've been, 12 years now, was just part of the community, knew some folks, right? Knew the right circle, if you will. It really helped us building that, coming in with that network, because during COVID, we're talking about COVID, we partnered with a lot of other entrepreneurs, like restaurant owners and stuff like that. People were doing food trucks during that time. So we put our coffee on the food trucks, right? At market stands, right? and they worked with us. It was a blessing actually, because they would buy it and, at our like let us have the full profit, not ask for a wholesale discount. So it was a blessing. They knew that community, it is our community, and the partnership. Led to several other collaborations, like coffee stouts, local breweries, and just that network, and just building and building and building and building. We have great coffee, but that's not the only thing we do. It's the entire brand experience, right? So if people know Belmont Bean, they know that Holly and I are, big in the community. We do a lot for the community, and it's not about us, right? I mean, yes, we want to get there, right, as entrepreneurs and have that, but it's not about us. We did this. I mean, Holly did it first for the community with our dance school, but then, we doing this for the community. I mean, Belmont Street was a blighted street. It was an exit ramp. It had nothing. The building across the street from us is still abandoned, with hopes over the next year it's been purchased and that'll be revitalized and stuff like that. But it's humbling. Every single person that comes to that shop for that shop now, right? They're not going to a local florist across the street and saying, hey, you want to grab a cup of coffee? So it's a very, very rewarding in that way for me, to be able to see that network of the larger community rather than our little circle, right? To have now that entire community as our network. You know that, Danny. I mean, brought you in, right? You're here. No, really. I mean, you rent space from us. Let's say it, right? You rent space from us. It's a great experience. I mean, we've made connections through our network that you and I have. Holly and you guys know each other, know people. Dave, I don't remember meeting you when you're here, but I wish I did. But the networking is big. Networking is being that face and being that around and socializing the brand. I mean, it's word of mouth, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And even though I shy away from that kind of social environment, I love it though. When I do that though. And it's very, very valuable to speak to people who come into the shop and sort of check out what their interests are. And, we really want it to be for the community.
Right. So
that kind of connection and hearing directly from the people that come in is very valuable.
Yeah. One thing I just wanted to say, just to comment, Jason, like, I actually said this at the very beginning of the show was, like when Richard had told me about this space, like alarm bells were going off in my head. Like you would be a fool not to try to come and see, like be a part of this community, because I love the diversity of the community. I love the freedom to not know everything, but be willing to have conversations with one another and to just like try to be the best versions of ourselves based off of those conversations. So like, I agree with you. It has been I think the right word is blessing for me to be a part of the community here, because it has unlocked things in me as well now that I'm like better for it. And Dave can probably attest to that better than anybody, because me and him did ministry together. We spent a lot of time together, and then he moved away and we didn't talk for a little bit. He was kind of getting settled. And I remember us having like our first real discussion in a long time. And he was like, "You're different, dude. Like something's different." So, Dave, I know you had a follow-up question. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jason, I think you tapped into something there. You kind of like blew right through it. And I love to mine the gold when people are talking. But you mentioned something super important that a lot of people forget to add into their equation when it comes to networking or connecting with people. And that was talking about your brand. So when you mentioned that, you kind of blew right through it, but I'm going to ask you to kind of come back to that for just a minute. Because when someone blows through something like that, it's because it's so ingrained in them that it just kind of flows as a part of their natural conversation. But let's talk about that just a little bit more in terms of when you're putting yourself out there. Talk to me a little bit, Jason, about why the brand is so important when you're networking with people.
So who I am or who I was before is probably not who I am now. because I represent a brand. Holly and I represent a brand. So you don't know this, but I had a car. It decided to not work anymore. So we had a third car that is a Volkswagen convertible Beetle with Belmont Bean on the side of it. That changes my driving habits, right? Tremendously. You're talking about the brand. I mean, that Beetle's got me in it all the time. So it's going around and round and round. So yeah, it is important to be your brand, right? And know that what you do is a direct reflection to that brand, and I wouldn't tarnish that for anything. So
wow, that is a super important statement. I just want to make sure to highlight those of you who are listening to this particular episode is to remember that when you're networking, it's really important to keep yourself away from trying to be impressive in those moments, but to really truly bring your genuine self, so that when the follow-up happens with those conversations, however many touches later that may be, the end result of what they're getting is going to be consistent with what they were first presented. So that was a really important topic that was brought up here, and I hope that all of you who are listening really latched onto that.
Yeah. So this is like one of the staple questions that I think in every podcast we are going to ask, because it is just so important. But one of the things that Dave and I have experienced in our life from networking is, we've met people, and that when we met them, they unlocked something in us that we maybe didn't know was there, or they helped us to tap into something that was like, oh, I didn't know that was there, but that's good. That that's something in me got unlocked. And so, outside of spouses, who they're an easy answer, right? Oh yeah, your spouse definitely unlocks the majority of the goodness in most of us. But who have you met professionally that has unlocked your greatest potential?
I see what you did there, by the way, and that was good. And as far as your podcast is concerned and your brand, I got that. It's going.
Hold on. We have a little music for you here, Jason. We want to prime you.
Okay, prime it.
All right, go ahead, man. We're ready now.
Names are okay, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Carmen Pantano. Carmen Pantano has unlocked a lot for me. He is the owner of Frank's Marble and Granite. He is a generally great person. He is also the president of Buy Local Coalition, which has really taught me a lot about community. And we try to always buy from each other, right? Within that coalition. He's just, when you need something, he's there. He's supported every single. We do a car show every month, and we do a benefit for that. He's there representing Buy Local Coalition, representing us, representing our brand, and just the mutual exchange within that coalition to represent each other's brand. He's taught me a lot.
That's awesome. Holly, what about you?
I have less profound influences. I like to learn. So I'm always taking online classes and webinars. Jason always laughs at me.
You took actually a webinar on how to do podcasts before this one.
I did not. You're funny. So I guess that I'm just constantly inspired by things that I read or learn. I try to learn from the best of the best, and take what I can and try it out.
Yeah, so, I'm pretty sure Jason thought you were going to say him. I saw him I'm just kidding. I saw him rise up in his chair like, this is my moment. No, I'm kidding. He definitely didn't do that. But
can you do more music for that?
Nope. Right. That was only for you, because I could see the wheels were turning. You were like, oh, this guy's onto something here. I'm starting to see what's happening. Great. So no, that's awesome. Dave, I'm going to kick it over to you, man. We got some sponsors that help pay the bills. And I think it's your turn, man, to talk about our sponsors.
Yeah, I will say this first of all before I do that, Jason. When I lived in the area, I lived in Red Lion. I was right around the corner from Carmen. Lived on South Franklin Street in Red Lion. So his business was literally right around the corner from me, and I got to meet him several times. And I just want to just say, man, you're dead on with the kind of guy that he is. He's a phenomenal guy, and so it was really cool to hear somebody else mention him in such a positive light. Well, we're going to give Jason and Holly a chance to catch their breath. Maybe reset the brain a little bit as we've been kind of drawn from them a little bit deeply here. And so we're going to let them do that, grab a quick drink maybe if they want to, and talk a little bit about our second sponsor for today's show. The People You Should Know podcast is sponsored by Axe Token. Axe is a brand new cryptocurrency and NFT built upon principles that are really unprecedented in today's financial market. Axe is here to help you build legacy and generational wealth while also performing acts of kindness that change the lives of orphans, widows, and survivors of abuse. To visit them and learn more about Axe Token, visit www.axetoken.com.
Well, listen, guys. One of the things at the very beginning that I said, and we kind of talked, we've talked about it, but I want to press in a little bit more, is that I believe that the coffee shop, the Belmont Bean, has become, to me, I believe it's probably the top networking hub in York County. So I know there's a lot of different coffee shops. I know there's a lot of different places where people meet, but I'm talking about just an organic place where I see people connecting all the time. And so I want to just ask the question. I know we talked about how you guys were like, originally this was going to be like almost like a catering situation. And then you're like, well, how hard can it be to turn it into a coffee shop? So I want to ask you, once you decided you wanted to turn it into a coffee shop, like what vision, what thoughts did you have in mind about the type of space you wanted to create?
Yeah, I felt very strongly about it. I just, okay, so it's important to earn money to keep your business going and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But after you have enough money, okay, it's my philosophy that the important thing is to create meaning and enrich people's lives. Okay. So to me, it's not just about the product at all, So I guess that was the focus from the beginning. How could we enrich the community, enrich people's lives of the people that live there, and create some meaning, or help them create meaning and connections in their life, meaningful connections. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that's the atmosphere we wanted to set up. COVID kind of put a wrench in the plans, but the plan was to encourage people to use it as a meeting space, not to rent it during hours, just come in and use it and hang out. Mm-hmm. Of course, hopefully they'll buy products too, but, like if there's clubs that want to meet there, we can encourage like even just book clubs, business networking events. One thing I wanted to do that I haven't been able to yet is to take people who have different skills and deep interest in the community, like somebody that might do some sort of art, but they're not an artist.
Right. You somebody like me, you're like specifically looking at me right now when you say that.
No, but you have a skill and a passion that that you can share with people, and that other people would benefit from that. Let's put it out there. Let's have a workshop. Let's, mm-hmm. share everything together, So I wanted to create a space that was conducive to that. So a relaxing atmosphere. I made sure that we put coloring books with crayons in there and board games and, get to know you cards so that people can hang out and just really, kind of, have it as a relaxing hub to connect with people and have good products.
Right.
So that we can sustain our business, of course.
And I'll pull on that a little bit just because I didn't get a chance to talk to you yet, Holly, but this is, I got a call today from Ty, right, who owns TC Backer Construction. And Ty wants to rent next week, I think it is, from 9 to 5 for the small studio for a conference for his people, because he has an influencer coming in from I don't know where, but like 2.27 million followers or something like that, right? To tell him how to teach his company how he can get more leads and stuff like that. But he has the space, right? He has this. He can build space if he wants to. I mean, he's the top roofer in New York, but he chose here because of that network, bringing that back, right? The comfort of the space, the coffee availability, right? So we have the ability to have a screen pull down, right, and set up 24 chairs. It's you're right. It creates that environment. It brought him here because it's comfortable, and that's what Holly was talking about. It's the enrichment. Right? They'll get a little bit more than sitting in a cold office space doing this, and probably retain more, right? Being able to walk around, go get a cup of coffee, and come back, right? And not just have it sitting there on the table with a pot.
And the other part of that, as our art center vision is to have spaces that people can rent that are affordable for them, like co-op spaces, or kind of like what Danny, and we have a hair salon back there. We have spaces so that people can rent them out when they want to, if they want to start their own business, but they might not have enough money to rent a full office. Monthly. It's a step up and a way for them to have a place to meet clients, have podcasts, and really get started to give them a, helping hand in that way. And then, like I said, we rent out the studios for different things as well. And even things like, we've had a Girl Scout troop, come and display their kids' items, and then that draws people. It gives them like a legit place. We're showing my artwork at an art center.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, of course, hopefully they'll buy products too. But the main idea is to enrich the community. We had an elementary school that did the same thing, and we had all of the art departments from different elementary schools just all up and down our hallways. And just to see the kids' faces light up, they can display it at school, yeah, but to have it displayed at a separate place, called an art center, was just really amazing for them. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, just on a personal note, for somebody who is insanely ADD, this guy right here, my time in your coffee shop, those types of environments are amazing for me because there's lots of activity going on, but I'm not responsible for any of it. I don't have to pay attention to the conversations, but I got the noise and the things going on, the different colors and tones and different types of materials that are used in the room. You all have done a very good job at creating quite an incredible environment. So it's not really any surprise, honestly, that you guys have actually won Best Coffee Shop in 2021 and 2022. Congratulations. Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Woo, yeah, we want to celebrate that.
So I think maybe you might have just answered this one, but there might be something you would want to add. Outside of the things that you shared, and this is to either one of you that would want to answer this, but what do you think really you want to attribute to being the source of the reason for the great success that the coffee shop has had?
I mean, I think for me, it's just having an authenticity and a purpose that we want to enrich the community. It's not just about products. It's not just about, like franchising our business and that kind of thing. It's much more meaningful to us. I think that the public can pick up on that, and that we work in partnership with the public for that. And for that reason, they're in partnership with us too and support us. That's my feel for it.
I agree with that. I do believe that, many people who know me know that I have a full-time corporate job as well. And so I think the community really understands that this shop is for the community and not saying, why are we paying this money for a cup of coffee for Jason and Holly? It's not about that. And we've created that enriched lifestyle here. And that, I call it grandma's basement because I remember going to grandma's basement and sitting there looking at photo albums in a comfortable space, right? And having that family environment. People bring their kids here for, play dates, right? Because we have this little cafe that we roll out for the kids. I mean, it is, yeah, it is a total community experience. You know, I'm amazed actually. I mean, we have regulars that come in, Sunday and Saturdays and sit outside in the patio.
Yeah, the other thing that we did
Hard to
before
love.
COVID, we had lots of live music events, local artists who would come in. So that's a way for us to support them, and they can enrich our environment as well for other people. We hang artwork of emerging artists if they want to on our walls with their contact information, get the word out for them. And we even had a comedy night. I want to have more comedy nights. We had 4 local comedians come in and share the mic one night. It was so much fun, and it gave them exposure as well. So win, win, win,
Yeah, I definitely think there needs to be a Jason Wehrle comedy night, and we can get him up on stage, and I like to hear some of his zingers up there.
The irony of that is I proposed to my wife on the stage of the Improv in Atlantic City.
Nice.
Obviously 18 years ago when they did have it there. But yeah, the comedian said something about a local person who wanted to try comedy, and said my name. She looked at me like I had 4 heads. I basically said the joke's on me, right?
Right. Yeah.
And did my thing, but that's I would never do stand up though.
That's awesome, man.
Can we put a limit on Jason Irish dancing in public? Can we just?
That's going to have to be a policy that you enforce. Now honored as the dance parent.
Holly, what we need from you and all of our listeners, Holly will be posting a reel on the Belmont Bean page of Jason doing some Irish dancing. So get ready for that. It'll be
all potential videos have been destroyed.
Oh no. Well, listen, guys, I have one final question here before we let you go. And I think it's just important. I think people would love to hear the answer to this, and I know that I definitely would. But what does it mean to you guys that people look at your coffee shop, even look at the Ryan Center and everything that you're doing in this space? What does it mean to you that people look at this as a safe, diverse place where they can network with other people?
It means everything to me, actually. Yeah. I grew up in the city school system, and, it had a lot of impact on me. There was such diversity, it didn't matter what they looked like or how they spoke or what neighborhood they came from or what car they drove. It was just the quality of the person inside, and everybody had a gift and a value. And I just see the world that way.
Right.
And that's why I want us to make sure that we have open doors for people to develop that value and to enrich their own lives, and to know that everybody has something they can contribute. So it's more of a working partnership in a way with Awesome. Jason, what about you, man?
So it's interesting. I grew up in, first I was born in a low income area, then moved out to northern Baltimore County, which if people, I don't know what your reach is here, but it's predominantly Caucasian white area. And I slowly moved up, and I did move up here for diversity for my daughter, right? I grew up that way, and I didn't want to be that way, right? So I've said to Holly many times, I say this story, when we do have live events and music, it's interesting to see the 70, 80-year-old lady sitting there next to this guy with big earrings, next to this guy with athletic suit on or something like that, right? And it's the not just equality, but the equity that we have here is amazing. And to be able to have people come in, you see the people on the streets that walk with their head down. They have a different appearance, but those people still come into our shop and their head is up. And it's interesting to me, right? That, they may be fighting something inside, but this is their bit of, for lack of better words, heaven. Yeah. Relaxation.
Yeah. And all ages too. I love it.
Yeah. The other day I was meeting with a new client of mine, and this truly is one of the reasons I love this space. I was sitting there, we were having a conversation, and there was a mom that was meeting with somebody, and her kids were playing in the little kitchen, and all of a sudden I had somebody asking me what type of cookie I wanted, what type of drink I wanted, and she was taking my order. And it was just amazing because it reminded me of the first time I came in here. I told the story at the beginning with my son and my kids, and it just reminded me of that. And I thought, this is just such a great place because no matter who you are, no matter what age you are, what your background is, it doesn't matter. Everybody can come in here, grab a cup of coffee, and just be community. And I think that's awesome. So, Dave, I want to just turn it over to you here. Maybe just one final thought to wrap this up, and then we'll let Jason and Holly get out of here and enjoy the rest of their day.
Yeah, so we're all done with questions. You're off the hook on that one. And we just want to just thank you both for taking the time to be on here with us. It's an honor that we get to be your first podcast that you've ever been on. And that's a tremendous gift to us. Thank you both just for being willing to dig a little bit deeper and to really share some pretty insightful thoughts for our listeners today as we get to hear your story. Congratulations to the both of you for the success that the Belmont Bean has in your whole space. And we really do wish you continued favor and success as you explore all the ways in which you are to be used in your community to really turn your community into the dream that you see.
Well, thank you. You guys were awesome interviewers as well. We won't say Danny's our favorite tenant, but
we all. It's implied. It's okay.
I'm just grateful that I was able to hide that Cat 5 cable, Cat 6 cable behind there, so I couldn't see it.
Oh man, that is a different story for a different day. But we definitely dodged some bullets on that. So. Well, thank you for joining us this week on the People You Should Know podcast. A very special thank you to today's guests, Holly Letaigne-Merrow and Jason Wehrle, for sharing their journey with us. Make sure to never miss an episode of the podcast by subscribing to our mailing list at heydouyouknow.com. That's heydouyouknow.com. On next week's episode, we will be chatting. This is really exciting for me as a digital agency owner. We will be chatting with somebody who used to be in the business, who built, but now has switched his business and is now building online policies for digital agency companies. And in the meantime, as he was building the company, he actually fell in love with his current wife. So that's pretty awesome. This episode is sure to be packed with tons of information for business owners regarding how the internet is becoming regulated and how it impacts business owners. So don't miss out. Once again, thank you for joining the People You Should Know podcast. We hope that today's episode has inspired you to connect with others and unlock your greatness. Until next time, talk to you all soon.
Thanks for listening to the People You Should Know podcast. Do you know somebody amazing? Do you wish everyone knew about them? We can't wait to hear from you. Drop by one of our social pages and send us a message with your nominee to be a featured guest on People You Should Know.